myself. Yeah. I'm feeling myself.
Welcome back to another episode of Loose Ends, everyone. I'm Cece,
I'm Val.
and we forgot to say that last week, but if you're watching us, you probably have figured it out. We got quite a response from last week's episode, whether or not it was viewed on videotape. It was certainly listened to in many a car, apparently. And we got a few calls, and it has prompted further conversation between ourselves here, and also, just in my case anyway, deeper introspection about certain ways of being and how I'm responding to them. For example, I mean, it's one thing to say I'm disappointed in the results of the election, as we kind of dissected last week, and another to say I'm disappointed in my child's, defeat at school or something, or, the Ravens just lost to Pittsburgh, so,
She's not happy to begin with today.
I'm not a happy camper at the moment, except that I spent the game quite literally observing my own reactions and realizing that the emotional responses are much the same. They're much similar. So again, choice to sit in the front seat or the front row and watch the show, as opposed to get in there and sling it out with Pittsburgh Steelers, to whom we lost again. At any rate, it occurred to me, I digress a little bit on my football, my Sunday. It's Sunday, everyone. We're recording. Have we ever recorded on a Sunday before?
No.
This is our very first time.
Yeah,
Why are we doing
because
it on
I
a
normally
Sunday?
don't have it off,
Oh, right.
and so
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, we thought we would pursue, actually, a little further some of the ripple effects that I, at least, believe are beginning to evidence themselves from the election. As they say, elections have consequences.
Yeah.
And so we are beginning to see some of those consequences, or at least hear about them,
Are we ever?
by virtue of some cabinet nominations and the glaring, shall we call it, lack of qualifications of said nominees. So again, practicing sitting in the front row. And I think I wanted to expound a little bit on the notion of sitting on the sidelines, which I think has a negative connotation, especially if you consider, Teddy Roosevelt's man in the arena kind of speech of, you need to get out in the arena. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about taking a passive position so much as I am talking about taking an objective one.
Well, here's something that comes to mind.
Okay.
I remember, I think it might have been What the Bleep Do We Know, the first one. And in there, they talked about, in Washington, D.C., I believe it was the year 2000, they did an experiment where they took, I think it was 400 monks or something, prayed for peace in Washington, and the crime rate went down significantly in the span of time.
I remember hearing something like that. Yeah.
That they did that. So I think for me, it's about visualizing what equality looks like instead of what it doesn't look like. Focus on what it does look like instead of what it doesn't look like, and then I'm not feeling like a passive observer,
as opposed to it's almost. So I watched this alien show.
I love a
on
good
Netflix.
alien show.
On Netflix. It was a 6-part, I think it was 6-part, half-hour, 35-minute episodes of, like In Search Of kind of thing. And somebody recommended it to me, and I watched it. And I can't say that I learned anything dramatically new, but the whole idea, and then there was on the 13th, Yeah. On the 13th, there was a congressional hearing. And so, all these peeps are coming out of the woodwork saying, yeah, me too, I saw it. And so I'm looking at the kind of people that I will kindly call unqualified. There are other adjectives that I could use.
Sure.
I'm taking the high road here.
Yeah.
In addition to all of that, we've got, I think, being moved from the back burner to the front burner, this whole alien thing. I think it's coming out. I think that we're going to see some ripple effects from all of this now. It's been building for decades. I think there's cracks.
I've always had a theory, and
what's your theory?
The theory is that whatever is out there,
I brought up aliens.
Whatever it is that is out there is much more, for the most part, I think, is much more evolved than us. I think physically, spiritually, in technology,
technologically,
right, as well.
It's a very big word.
It is. So, but I think I think that's all out there. And here's where my theory is: I think we're crazy, or Earth people are crazy to think that they're not monitoring enough to know the kind of conversations that people like Trump and Elon Musk are having about maybe weaponizing space. And I think we're allowed to fuck with our world, but I think the second we start fucking with outer space, that's when we're going to see visitation, and they're just going to go, yeah, no. We're not having this.
Maybe
we're not having
I find
this.
it an interesting coincidence that Nancy Mace, who's the, I forget where she's from, which congressional district and who she represents, but she's the head of the committee. And she's a rational human being. As opposed, there's a lot of people in
as
Congress
opposed to a
that
radical.
you wouldn't
Sure.
call that. I would, I would kindly call unqualified. But there are other adjectives one could use for some people in Congress. I watched some of that testimony by, one admiral, 2, 3 pilots.
The one that was brought out in 2001.
No. This is
recently.
What's today? Sunday the 17th?
Yep.
I don't know what day it is. It is.
18th.
It's the
Yes,
17th.
17th, yeah.
So this was the 13th. This was 4 days ago.
Okay.
4 days ago. I mean, the cracks are getting bigger. Let's put it that way. That's my own personal opinion. And so one of the interesting theories floated about.
It would really fuck with Christianity, though, wouldn't it? It really would. It really would. And that's where I'd like to be an observer. I would gladly stand in the sidelines going, yeah.
I don't know.
Thank you.
I don't know. I don't want to go there right now, honestly.
I just think
But
that would be
so
a
derailed
fucking
where
riot.
the hell I was going to go right now. I'm like, oh, what was I going to say?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, so one of the interesting theories that, there's a lot of evidence, she does in air quotes, that is visual. Wall carvings that carbon dated, you can prove, or 1500 years old, or 700, or whatever the hell number that is, that exists well before we did. And here they are, very, very much what we would call an alien-looking creature with large eyes and this, kind of larger elongated head. Well, one of the things that they did in this show, in this series, and these are theories.
Yeah.
Okay. Was get people that do this. They can take like a young child who's missing.
Yeah.
And he's been missing 10 years,
and make him older. Yeah.
Through digital manipulation. But
Seen that.
Okay. So they can do the same thing with human and other species evolution over
Yeah.
time. And so over time, what has happened to us and what has fallen away and what is no longer needed and what takes smaller precedence. Anyway, they projected that within a certain number of years, and I can't tell you because I don't remember right now, we would have much smaller noses, much larger eyes, much smaller ears, and a much bigger head to accommodate a growing brain. And that this is all theory, could we have, that these are time warps, and alternate universes aside, the theory of time not being linear, but rather curvilinear.
Mm-hmm.
And could that be why we have certain spots that have been visited many times? Catalina Island off of LA, on the coast of California, the Bermuda Triangle.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's this other island that I've forgotten.
Well, there's places in Arizona, there's certain places that are very prone
right.
to see that sort of thing.
Could we be coming back to visit ourselves?
Oh, sure.
To say, don't fuck it up. I mean, that's one theory.
Well,
because they could have taken us out long ago, based on the technology.
But that's my point. So if you think to me the reason we're not being visited is because we're a race that is like, we got fucking power. And that's what we do. And we're like children. We're like children on a playground. And, we want power and we want control. And if we get it, the entire world becomes Lord of the fucking Flies, right?
Yeah.
And so why would an alien race that has evolved, that has this ability to actually, solve problems rather than...
Well, they have the ability to get here and to remain kind of anyway. Oh, and the other thing is, the footage of this guy's got some footage. He's been on it like 40 years. He's a journalist from some TV show in LA, and he's been on this stuff for literally 40 years. Forget his name too. This is how much I retain. I just retain the interesting stuff about the alien stuff, not the people who put it together. But I encourage people, if you want to learn something, it's a little bit like Dateline. But anyway, they think that potentially, I know, not only could we be visiting ourselves, coming back in history, that we could be like having split into different kind of races, that mostly we're here to help, but sometimes there's one example of definitely the cattle mutilation. There was a whole population down this little island, they said it was like they were taking samples from the sky and shooting down and grabbing, and so they talked to these people. This guy actually did the research, and I forget what point I was going to make when I started off on that.
So what are you saying? So that was more nefarious than to help?
Well, the CIA was involved too.
And then there is a perspective
in this all the way through of hiding information and making sure that the population doesn't go crazy.
I've often heard a theory that if you've seen it here on Earth, it's actually from here on Earth. It's not alien life form, because they haven't actually touched us yet. They've observed us, but they haven't touched us. That anything that's happening or flying around is the United States government or the Russian government that have been doing this since the 1930s. Trying to scare the shit out of people or whatever. I don't know. That's
a theory, but I don't
just
buy
a theory.
it.
Just a theory.
I don't buy it. The materials that they have recovered from the various crash sites.
Did you see the latest picture of Mars?
No.
They found a circular craft that was a crash. No, and they got pictures from Mars from that little rover thing, right?
Yeah,
took this picture. Yeah, and so I thought that really interesting, because I just think it's ridiculous if you think we're the only ones out here in this big old universe and galaxies upon galaxies upon galaxies. Come on, like.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
So anyway, Back to the ripple effects. I think it is possible that there may be increased, if you will, sky chatter, is to prepare us so we're not so freaked the fuck out. Now, if you look at just that, and if you look at just the Trump the stuff, all of that,
Okay.
that's two swirling masses of chaos.
True
right?
that.
Right? We're just off a third swirling mass called the pandemic. And so if you take...
And I don't even think
and
we're
we can
fully
push
off
the
that.
alien thing off to the side because it's not like,
Right.
it's not like a spaceship landed and we're all freaking the fuck out about it. But I do think that there is, in universal time, a blink of an eye could be 50 years, right?
Yes.
Or 100,
Yes.
or whatever. We don't know.
Right.
Right. So if you think back, and we talked about this a little bit in the last show about the age of Aquarius being, quote, ushered in the 60s, then we're right on schedule. It's reached a boiling point. And I think the ripple effects of that boiling point were not instigated by MAGA-ism, nor simply any isms alone, but that there are these various chaotic clusters of crap, just like cyclones. Imagine
Yes,
a
yes.
hurricane, and there's furniture and shit, and you got to duck to, make sure you don't get killed. I think we're in the midst of that. With the differences, we're not in the midst of one or two.
No.
We're in the midst of many more converging at a time when what we're all longing for after the pandemic is a sense of certainty, of structure and steadiness and things you can count on, which is why I think, in essence, Donald Trump was reelected, because that's what he promised.
Well, that's what he sold.
Return. Yeah.
It's not what he's.
I'm
It's
not
not what he
saying
will
he's
give.
Right. And I think that what's going to happen is that we're going to get a lot of additional...
Oh, there's going to be buyer's remorse in a year. A year from now, people are going to be going, "What the fuck?" It could, yeah, but I think it's going to take a good year for everything. I mean, I just think we're blessed here in Canada because we do have like 5 different parties, and 3
and a
of
parliamentary system, which is quite different.
Totally different.
And you've got to make consensus. You've got to make agreements to run the country.
Right, and we will strategically vote, and governments will strategically, bind together to push out certain votes. Right, like we did that like years ago when Trudeau got in from the Conservative government, and we turned it over to Liberal, and I think that's what they're trying again. We've got a guy that's very much like Trumpism, I guess, but he'll never get the majority here in Canada. So that's a real positive thing because our democratic system is so much different. We have a Green Party, we have an NDP party, we have a Conservative party, we have a Liberal party, and then we have like, a couple of other small parties. You know what I mean? But they're still there and they're still fucking active. I mean, Green Party was this little itty bitty thing.
I
fucking
remember when the Green
25
Party
years.
Yeah.
Right, 25 years ago. Now they're not fucking little.
Yeah.
They're significant.
Yeah.
So, you know what? Inch by inch, poco a poco, right? Like you said, things happen and things have been moving here in Canada. So I don't think we'll be faced with the same kind of thing. But in saying that, very disappointing that I just saw in Hamilton, Ontario, 2 days after the election, a bunch of white people with black masks and black hoods walking down the street going, mass deportation is necessary, and it's
in
that
Canada,
in
too?
Hamilton,
In
Hamilton,
for
Ontario,
heaven's
right?
sakes. Oh,
And
for
so
heaven's sakes.
so that in itself it's unfortunate because it's like you said, the state sneezes, Canada catches a cold. well, that is disturbing to me. I don't want to see that. Yes, I think our immigration system is broken. There's no doubt about that. But that's not the kind of shit that's going to fix it either, is that attitude, because it's breeding violence. And violence isn't what we need in society. We don't need to be at odds with one another, because here is my reality of how I think. If a country like Ukraine can just be their own country, and then all of a sudden they're in war, why can't that happen to me? And if it does happen to me, I want to be fucking, I would be damn grateful if some other country took me in and gave me, safety and housed that.
Yes.
So why would I deny that for somebody else?
Because that's a higher level of thinking than is possible. What we would need, what's coming to mind, can't we find in the background John Lennon playing Imagine? All the people. Imagine there's no countries and no religions too. Well, now you've got a landscape that might accommodate, hey, I want to live here and I want to live here, and there's one universal government, and now we're into the futuristic landscapes of science fiction.
Right.
Because it is not apparently in the nature of and I'm using this word intentionally, the average human being is the preponderance. Like if you're just talking numbers, like let's say how many billions have we got?
Like 8.
So let's say you got 8 billion people and you have an average IQ. What do you think it's going to be? I say it's probably below 100.
Okay.
I'm going to say it's probably 97.
Okay.
Okay? Now, you're not going to change the world with people at 97 IQ. And I'm sorry, that's just an evolutionary fact.
Right.
Okay?
You need them to catch up.
And I don't mean to be any ism camp
no, because it's a collective, right? We are a collective, and unfortunately,
so
we evolve collectively.
Very few people at a very high IQ, a very few people at a high IQ with the proper contacts and the proper opportunities, and even fewer number of people who come from the right race and can make it in that world. And we are whittling it down to white boys.
Yeah.
White boys run the world.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And so here we've got Musk and Trump arm in arm and talking about cutting all kinds of programs for those who we're supposed to care for, which are the average folks.
Right.
Those people who put their trust in the people that they put in power. And it's ever been so, I'm afraid, and probably Shakespeare wrote some erudite quote that's not coming to my mind right now, but we've always done this. We always, there's people, and unfortunately, I think I'm including myself, who want to believe that other people have good in their hearts.
Not everyone has good in their heart.
I know, and it's heartbreaking for me. I believe that it's there, and maybe it's gone dormant like a spark that just needs a flint, to come along and light it up again. I don't know. I don't know.
No.
And maybe there are people that really have, quote, sold their souls.
Well, here's something. I remember years ago I was dating this guy.
Yeah.
And we went out to dinner with a friend of his.
Is this before or after Randy?
Oh God, after. This is when you and I were living together in St. Lawrence subway station, St. Lawrence and Yonge area.
Oh right.
Yes.
Cardinal Court.
Yes.
Right.
So I'm dating this guy, and we went.
Oh, I remember this guy.
We went out for dinner with his friend, who was an Indian man who was very wealthy, who owned a nickel mine in Cuba. Okay. And we were having dinner, and he was casually telling the guy I was dating that he loses about 6 to 8 lives in the mine every 4 to 6 months. And he just
So it doesn't
replaces
a
it.
year.
It wasn't. It was the way.
It was the casual.
It was the casual way. Anyway, I didn't say anything. And later on, that boyfriend asked me, said, "What did you think of that guy?" And I went, "I don't know. And he looked at me and he was shocked. And he goes, "You never not know. You know." And I remember like trying not to hold myself back and going, "Well, if he ever comes to town again, don't invite me to dinner." And he's like, "Why?"
Yeah.
And I go, "Because that is not the kind of person that I could be around. I don't know how to deal with that. I don't know how to deal with the nonchalantness of the 6 to 8 lives that are lost every 4 to 6 months. And he's so nonchalant, and I'm thinking about their families because they live in fucking Cuba. Who's taking care of the children and the wife? And that's where my mind goes. And you're fucking just casually, these are lives that don't matter." And that's when I knew that not everybody is innately good. Some people just don't give a fuck. And that's sad. But I can't be around people like that. And I know what it's like. And I know how they feel. I know the energy of them. And I don't like it.
Not how they are feeling, but
No,
rather how
it
we
feels
feel to be around them.
right.
Yes. And and that brings up the whole notion of learning to trust your quote gut, your intuition, and how many have had their trust meters bent or broken in childhood by being told that they don't feel what they are trying to express that they're feeling. "I'm angry." "Oh, you're not angry." Not. I'm tons so sad. "Well, you're not sad. There's nothing to be sad about."
Right.
"Well,
No,
I'm
no,
giving you something to be. You want to be hurt."
Right. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And so I work with people, as you do, who have arrived at adulthood, and the little voice inside says, "Don't take this job, but the money's really good," and they take the job, and then they're unhappy, and they end up hiring a coach to help make them happy and better in their job because they're too stressed and because their boss is telling them they need to improve their time management skills. And it isn't about time management. It's about prioritizing what's important to you, which means diving down a little bit and putting on some hip boots and trying to figure out, well, what the fuck is important to me?
Right.
And why? And if it is important to me that I make this amount of money for this particular job, and these are the headaches that come with it, then acquiesce to the headaches because you have asserted, this is my motivation. I'm going because of the money. Or stop fucking complaining and get out of the job and look for something that
which a lot of people
to
do.
Express yourself in a more authentic way. And many people choose to do that too. I mean, but it's figuring out what you want and figuring out what's important to you. So I have a feeling that the world is still dealing with the emotional ripple effect of the pandemic, not to mention the financial ripple effect for many small businesses and many individuals who had as I did, had to redirect funds in order to keep my company.
Well, here's the thing, and this is, as if you really study how all of, how everything went down from COVID to now. And like, I did a bit of that in the last couple of days, and, especially like on inflation here in Canada, right? So in 2020, our inflation rate was 0.72. Okay. 2021, it jumps to 3.4. 3.4. Okay. That's almost 5 times more. Okay. In 2022, jumps to 6.8 and then right to 8.6.
Wow.
Okay. Now it's come down considerably. Now it's at 2%, but here's the illusion.
Prices haven't come down to 2%.
Well, that's what they're saying. And now in 2024, that our inflation rate is 2%. So we started at 0.72. And now we're all relieved. Oh, it's come down to that they
Yeah,
cover
yeah.
already. But they've still managed to fuck you because it's more than double. Because half of, like, if you double 0.72, it comes out to 1.44. Like, you know what I mean? Now we're at 2%. So now, but it's an illusion. You've been made to believe, well, now you can breathe. Now you can breathe because they up the prices over here and then they bring it down. But
They make the
at the
ice
same
cream
time, right,
containers smaller. I know that they've made the ice cream containers smaller.
what do they call that?
Shrinkation?
Yeah.
Shrinkation? Inflation?
Shrinkflation.
Shrinkflation? Whatever.
Yes.
Well, so anyway, so there's that ripple effect, and there are the emotional ripple effects. We have animals and children who are quite literally, you can label them pandemic dogs.
Yeah.
They don't know how to be apart from their people. They really don't. And they go through anxiety as a result, and children too, and adults. I mean, I think still people are a little, suffering from PTSD, if you will, and having been a sufferer of that for a number of years after the carbon monoxide event, it's not fun. And I think there are a lot of people who are overreacting to other stimuli, not least of which might be an election, as a result of an overactive
emotional response from a
limbic
pandemic.
system. Of my adrenaline is going, my cortisol is flowing in.
Well, I think the pandemic really broke people down into two different peoples, and that was people who are regularly social who weren't suddenly allowed to be and lived alone, or maybe and didn't know how to deal with that lack of social interaction. And then there were people like us who, when it came in, we have done enough personal work that we've had to isolate ourselves in order to do that work, that this didn't even seem like an isolation. This was like, oh, okay, this is just,
So this is the way it is. Well,
right.
I thought that that's where I was. I can now look back and see that that's not where I was. That where I was, holy fuck me, the whole world is shutting down and my future looks a lot different. And even though I was coping, and coping is the appropriate word, I believe, I was not really I didn't have the equilibrium that I have found now.
No one did. As much as you try to gracefully take the situation.
There are people that have found it again. They might have had it once, but I think there are still some people who do not know that they're still on rocky ground. They just feel it, but there's no reason for it. There's no reason for it. Everything's back to normal.
You're absolutely right. Yesterday,
it's not normal.
I go into work and I'm picking up this, new hire package because I've got a new hire coming in, and so I go into the office, and the only girl there, she's in the back and looks at me and then puts on a mask and come out, and I almost feel bad. I'm like, in that moment, I'm like, fuck, I'm not wearing a mask. And I'm feeling bad because she puts on a mask. So the residuals are way still there.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, that's some thoughts. Interesting. We went from aliens to COVID masks, but I think it's a good idea for all of us to remember that the aftershock of an earthquake can be as dangerous as the earthquake and all its tumbling buildings were at once. And in the timeline of the universe, the blink of an eye, this election, the pandemic, possibility of aliens. If you see a little gray person out there with big eyes, just think of it as your future self come back to warn you not to eat cholesterol.
Maybe. Who knows?
But if they come back to warn me not to eat chocolate, I'm going to tell them to fuck off. Do you have a feel-good
I do have a feel-good story.
Today?
So in Arkansas, Dylan McKay is driving down the road on Halloween night, and he comes across this golden doodle that's about 10 months old that has been hit and run. Like somebody has taken off, hit by a car and run. And this poor little thing is on the, well, it's not so little, but on the side of the road, broken legs and all. And he takes it to the vet and gets his fiance, which is Emily Roberts, involved. And they decide that they have to help this dog. And, the vet's like, well, it's 7,000, and then it goes up to 11,000. Wow. So this couple is ready to get married. They've got about, 11 grand in the bank, and they like completely take their life savings to save this dog.
Oh my heavens.
Well, the response from donations into the GoFundMe account that somebody made for them raised 39,000.
Oh, I love that.
And they're taking the dog.
Oh, love that.
So they just thought that, they spent all this money. And I thought that was such a wonderful story, because not very many people do that. We all sort of sometimes drive by the hit and run. I may not a hit and run. If I saw it alive, I would stop. But
that exactly happened to me. Only the dog didn't live. But I stopped. I was late for a presentation, and I got there and I said, "Hey guys, but sorry, this happened on the way." It was a golden retriever. And I can remember, and yeah, it was really sad.
Yeah. So, but this was just it turned out really well. But $11,000. This poor little golden doodle, got better legs, and
he's their forever dog.
Oh yeah, now he is. So I mean, come on. But it was just such a lovely story. So that's a good news story this week.
Well, and I like that good news story, and the world certainly needs more good news stories. So if you have one, feel free to share with us. We'd be happy to share it with whoever
the world
watches.
Yes.
And if you're enjoying this, please do consider liking or subscribing to either videos or on our podcast or your podcast platforms. And wherever you're listening, whether it's Spotify or Apple, we do appreciate reviews help, and so does liking or whatever it is you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And every so often, like once every 6 months, this is like my public service announcement. I'll forget to do this again forever.
Well, have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.